Rochester Midland Corporation. I'm Harlan Calkins, chairman of the company. We thought it would be fun for you to hear a little bit about the history of the company, the people, the events, and the products which put us where we are today. My grandfather, Daniel N. Calkins, along with C.P. Kroll, founded the company in 1888 as the Rochester Germicide Company, a name which remained unchanged until 1980. In the late 1800s, there were no planes and no interstate highways. Deliveries were made by horse-drawn carriage, and the most common packaging used by Rochester Germicide was a 3-gallon container, a size no longer in use today. Long-distance travel or shipping, such as it was, used rail. Think of government regulations. No FDA existed. No EPA. No IRS. In 2004, RMC had to deal with a Federal Register full of 52,000 pages of regulations. And by 2010, that Federal Register had grown to 80,700 pages. In the 1800s, there was no health insurance, no Social Security, and women couldn't vote. The good news was there weren't many attorneys around either. Can you imagine how we could have negotiated a transaction with a South African firm such as we did in 2001, mostly by email? We couldn't have done it. Daniel Calkins paid $8,000 for the patent for the predecessor of the Santa machine, an enormous amount in 1888, and its value, reflected in the 1899 balance sheet 11 years later, was still more than 80% of the assets of the company. Product claims in those days didn't require much substantiation. Let me tell you about a couple of ours. The first was the formaldehyde lamp, known first as the Low Disinfector and later renamed the Calkins Disinfector. The lamp put a mist of formaldehyde into a room to be inhaled and was guaranteed to cure diphtheria, consumption, which was tuberculosis, typhoid, yellow fever, the grip, whooping cough, and the measles. Formaldehyde is used to preserve bodies, and it's a little scary to think that we were advocating breathing it. As an aside, formaldehyde was brought to America by two Dolge brothers in the late 1870s from Germany, and a little over 100 years later, RMC acquired the Dolge Company. Another of RGC's great early products was called Solacrete. We clearly should have kept this product in the line, instead of dealing with all the products we have today, because Solacrete did everything. Here's some of the language from the early brochures. Cuspidors, keeps wholesome while in use. Spittoons and chamber vessels should contain the mixture. It is good for privy vaults and cesspools. Clearly, immigrant ships benefited from the product, as Solacrete was used to kill lice on the immigrants. We credit René Constantin with starting our food safety division, but long before René, Solacrete was promoted to take care of many problems plaguing chickens and animals, including mange, chicken cholera, fleas, distemper, colic, gapes and gales, whatever those last two ailments might be. In 1903, when a new branch was opened in Toronto, the company's expansion began. We had our first lawsuit in 1911 when the company's patent on the aromatic disinfecting unit, the predecessor of our Santa unit, was challenged. Obviously, we won that case. In 1915, the board of directors had two major items on its agenda. First, whether or not to supply milk to the employees, and second, whether or not the president's salary should be raised to $15 per week. In 1932, the Great Depression hit, and the company barely survived. Most of our business at that time was derived from Sanner sales, and most of those sales were in the only places that could afford it, bars. Our service reps would fill the Sanner units, collect the 50 cents cash per unit, and somehow that cash would find its way from the branches to our headquarters in Rochester, New York. It took the company from 1888 to 1940 to reach $400,000 in sales. Of course, $400,000 in 1940 was a lot bigger number than it is today. When World War II ended, Willard Eddy launched a major growth effort, recruiting ex-military officers to start up new branches in Detroit, St. Louis, Cleveland, and New Orleans. 2 acquisitions in the 1960s filled in geography in North Carolina and Iowa, and a new branch was established in Tampa. By 1972, the company's revenue had reached $12 million, with about 45% of the sales in Sanner, 45% in feminine care, and the other 10% in institutional products. The company's direct sales were confined to the northeastern part of the country, and we made the decision to take the company national and then international through a series of acquisitions and partnerships. A second key decision was to broaden the base of the business, starting up value-added units in water treatment, food safety, and Intech. Green Chemistry got its start in 1991 with a Midwest acquisition, and the pulp and paper piece of water treatment was added in 1997. The 3 areas of water treatment, food safety, and Intech, which didn't exist in 1970, now account for about 45% of our business. At the end of the day, it's all about people. People like those who long ago built the foundations of our company, sometimes in very difficult conditions. People such as those who have joined us from other organizations and who have enriched our knowledge base, and dedicated people in all areas of the company who have contributed so much to the success of Rochester Midland Corporation.